He's the ultimate rock star, wild, magnetic, and unstoppable. But behind Mick Jagger's swagger and superstardom is a love life that reads like a history of fame, fashion, and heartbreak. From the swinging 60s to today, Jagger's list of lovers includes muses, models, rebels, royalty, and tragedies. Each woman left a mark on the man behind the mic, and some never fully let him go. This is the untold story of every woman Mick Jagger has ever loved, or lost. Melanie Hamrich, the fiancé 44 years his junior. At 82, Mick Jagger is still full of surprises, and one of them is his relationship with 38-year-old former ballerina Melanie Hamrich. They've been together for over a decade, raising a son, collaborating on ballet, and quietly getting engaged. Yes, engaged, though they kept it under wraps until April 2025. In an interview with Paris Match, Hamrich casually revealed, "Mick proposed 2 or 3 years ago. Maybe we'll get married one day, maybe not. We're so happy right now that I'm afraid to change anything." No fanfare, just love. The couple met backstage in Tokyo in February 2014. Jagger was touring with the Rolling Stones. Hamrich was performing with American Ballet Theater. Sparks didn't fly immediately, but by that summer they were seeing each other. 2 years later, in December 2016, they welcomed their son, Devereaux Octavian Basil Jagger, Mick's 8th child. Despite a jaw-dropping 44-year age gap, the couple has never made a spectacle of their relationship. They've preferred to keep things low-key and focused on their family. Hamrich eventually left ABT in 2019, trading center stage for motherhood and creative projects. That same year, she and Mick collaborated on Port Rouge, a ballet choreographed by her and scored with Rolling Stones hits curated by Jagger himself. "She picked the songs very honestly," Mick told Town & Country. "I just helped tie them together." While Hamrich rarely posts about Jagger, she makes an exception for meaningful moments. In July 2024, she shared sweet birthday photos of Mick with their son, captioning, "Happy birthday, love, we love you." She's fiercely protective of their privacy, but has made it clear they're a team. Beyond ballet and romance, Hamrich also writes. Her debut novel, First Position, dropped in 2023, a sultry, behind-the-curtain look at the ballet world. "Writing it was therapy," she said, admitting she started the book after retiring and during the COVID shutdowns. It marked a bold new chapter for the artist-turned-author. She also co-founded Live Arts Global, a nonprofit bringing free ballet to audiences during the pandemic. "It felt amazing to give dancers a stage again," she said. Between her production work, parenting, and writing, Hamrich proves she's far more than Mick Jagger's fiancé. Jerry Hall, from scandalous beginnings to a twisted fairy tale. Mick Jagger and Jerry Hall's relationship began with temptation and never truly escaped it. They met in 1976 under controversial circumstances. Hall was engaged to Bryan Ferry, frontman of Roxy Music, and Jagger was still married to Bianca. As Hall recounted in her memoir, My Life in Pictures, the chemistry between her and Mick was undeniable from the start. During a dinner hosted by Jagger, Ferry noticed the spark. "Mick was smitten," she wrote, and not long after, the attraction turned into a full-blown affair. On May 21, 1977, they met alone in New York and began a relationship that would span more than 2 decades, 4 children, and countless public scandals. Their early romance was intense. Hall convinced Jagger to give up LSD and heroin, and they celebrated their love with trips to Morocco and Barbados. "My love was so strong I couldn't do anything but follow Mick," Hall admitted. She believed she could change him, not just his drug habits, but his notorious womanizing too. By 1978, Bianca had filed for divorce, and Hall and Jagger were officially together. The couple lived extravagantly, buying homes in London, New York, Paris, and Moustique, but cracks formed early. In 1982, Hall left Jagger, allegedly due to his unwillingness to marry. She began dating millionaire Robert Sangster, but the separation didn't last. By 1984, they were back together, welcoming their first daughter, Elizabeth. A year later, their son James was born, one of twins, though the second tragically died in the womb. Despite their growing family, Jagger's infidelity continued. Rumors of an affair with model Carla Bruni rocked the relationship. Hall was devastated, especially after the birth of their third child, Georgia May, in 1992. She issued an ultimatum, even confronting Bruni directly. "Leave my man alone." The two separated, but as always, they reconciled. In 1990, hoping for stability, they married in a Balinese Hindu ceremony. Yet the union would later be declared legally void. By 1997, their fourth child, Gabriel, was born, but Jagger was away on tour, missing key family milestones. The final blow came in 1999 when Brazilian model Luciana Gimenez became pregnant with his child. Hall had endured decades of affairs, but this was too much. "I told him I wanted a divorce," she wrote. "Having a child with another woman was too much." The legal battle was complex. Because their Balinese wedding wasn't recognized in England, their separation ended with an annulment. Hall later admitted the annulment seemed a bit rude, but both agreed to a financial and legal settlement. Despite everything, they stayed friendly, united by love for their children. "We managed to keep the family strong," Hall said, "and we're still friends." In July 2023, Hall attended Jagger's 80th birthday celebration, proof that some connections, no matter how bruised, endure. Their relationship may have been born in chaos and ended in heartbreak, but it was never without love. Luciana Gimenez, the one who shared parenthood. In the late 1990s, Mick Jagger met Brazilian model and TV presenter Luciana Gimenez during the Rolling Stones tour in Brazil. At the time, Jagger was still legally married to Jerry Hall, the mother of 4 of his children. Though initially uninterested, Luciana eventually entered into a brief but intense relationship with the rock icon. Their affair remained private until 1998, when Gimenez discovered she was pregnant, an event that would have ripple effects across Jagger's personal life. When the news broke, Jerry Hall filed for divorce, ending their 22-year relationship. In May 1999, Luciana gave birth to their son, Lucas Maurice Morad Jagger, in New York. She recalled in interviews that she faced overwhelming media harassment in London after the news of her pregnancy leaked. To escape the scrutiny, she moved from the UK to Australia, then to Brazil, and finally settled in New York, pregnant, alone, and with nowhere to live. "I said, I'll have this child alone, so no one can bother me," Luciana remembered. Though Mick initially distanced himself, he stepped in to provide support by helping her find a doctor and an apartment. Luciana later revealed that tabloids, including News of the World, had illegally tapped her phone, discovering the baby's gender before even Jagger knew. The phone hacking scandal eventually led to the paper's closure, but at the time, it added to her trauma. "It was the most difficult time of my life," she confessed. "I cried for 9 months." Despite their split, Luciana and Jagger have maintained a warm, respectful relationship. Over the years, she has publicly supported him, even sharing birthday tributes and attending his concerts with their son. Jagger has embraced fatherhood, developing a close relationship with Lucas. In 2017, Luciana admitted she wrote an apology letter to Jerry Hall, though she never received a reply. Jagger, too, reflected on the situation in 2003. "The relationship with Luciana was a mistake," he said before adding, "but Lucas is a really great kid," acknowledging the complexity of the situation. Today, Luciana gets along well with Jagger's current partner, Melanie Hamrich, and expresses no bitterness. "I still love Mick," she said, "but not in a romantic way. He's a great friend, and I'm happy he's happy." Their bond has endured, born from chaos, yet strengthened by time, forgiveness, and shared parenthood. Bianca Jagger, the only official wife. When Mick Jagger met Bianca Perez Mora Macias in Paris in 1970, the chemistry was immediate, electric, and impossible to ignore. She wasn't just another pretty face in his orbit. She was mysterious, educated, Nicaraguan-born, politically aware, and completely unimpressed by his rock god reputation. "I wasn't attracted to Mick for physical reasons," she later said. "He was shy, vulnerable, human. It was like a bolt of lightning." That lightning led to a whirlwind. By 1971, she was pregnant, and Mick decided, impulsively, as always, that they should marry. The wedding in Saint-Tropez was a rock and roll spectacle. Bianca walked down the aisle in a white Yves Saint Laurent suit and wide-brimmed hat, 4 months pregnant. Mick, in rainbow sneakers, was surrounded by a crowd of Beatles, artists, and paparazzi. It was glamour, chaos, and dysfunction rolled into one, and behind the scenes, it was already falling apart. "My marriage was over on my wedding day," Bianca later confessed. The cracks widened quickly. Bianca tried to play the traditional role, wife, mother, support system, but the Rolling Stones world was built on chaos and temptation. "Groupies weren't easy to get used to," she admitted. "Mick," she said, "screws many, but has few affairs." She had her own entanglements, including a 2-year on-and-off romance with Ryan O'Neal. Still, they kept up appearances, splitting their time between London, Malibu, and the south of France, while raising their daughter, Jade. But Bianca was never going to be just Mrs. Jagger. She refused to be overshadowed, becoming a 1970s fashion icon and a fixture at Studio 54, once famously entering her birthday party on a white horse. Mick didn't like being upstaged, and he especially didn't like that Bianca was stealing his spotlight. Meanwhile, he was slipping away, emotionally and physically, touring with the Stones and eventually beginning a highly publicized affair with Jerry Hall. In 1978, Bianca had enough. She filed for divorce citing adultery, kicking off a legal battle that played out in tabloids. Though she fought to overturn a prenup signed under pressure, she reportedly walked away with just $1.2 million. She kept the Jagger name, but not the man. "A rock star is the worst husband a woman can have," she told Vanity Fair. Still, Mick never legally married anyone else. Bianca remains his only official wife, and the one woman who didn't let him write the ending. Maryanne Faithful, rock's most beautiful disaster. Mick Jagger and Maryanne Faithful weren't just a couple, they were the couple of the swinging 60s. When they met in 1964, she was a rising star with angelic looks and a rebellious spirit. He was the Rolling Stones frontman just beginning his ascent to rock god status. Their chemistry was instant. Jagger and Richards even wrote "As Tears Go By" for her, her first hit. In return, she inspired some of his most iconic tracks, from "You Got the Silver" to "The Aching Wild Horses." But behind the glamorous headlines and tabloid drama, their 4-year relationship was a storm. Passionate, creative, reckless. Faithful called it the most intense and passionate relationship I've ever had, but also very destructive. Drugs quickly became part of their reality. By 1967, a now infamous police raid at Keith Richards' home saw Maryanne found wrapped in nothing but a fur rug, sparking scandal and outrage. The drugs were hers, but Mick stayed silent to protect her career. That silence didn't shield her from the spiral. She lost custody of her son, battled heroin addiction, and even slipped into a coma after an overdose in Australia. Her miscarriage in 1968 only deepened the pain. Meanwhile, Jagger's rumored affair with Anita Pallenberg didn't help. Faithful reportedly had a one-night stand with Keith Richards in response. It was chaos masked by fame. They broke up in 1970, but the emotional wreckage lingered. "I thought I didn't fit into his life," she later admitted. Her descent into homelessness and addiction became brutal tabloid fodder. Still, she clawed her way back, releasing Broken English, redefining her voice and emerging as a survivor. Jagger, years later, reconnected when she was diagnosed with cancer. "He loves me and I love him," she said. "The fact that our relationship ended in 1970 doesn't matter." When Maryanne passed in 2025 at 78, Jagger paid tribute. "She was a wonderful friend, a beautiful singer, and a great actress. She will always be remembered." Carla Bruni, The Hidden Affair in Plain Sight. In the early 90s, Mick Jagger found himself entangled in one of his most scandalous affairs, this time with rising Italian model and singer Carla Bruni. She was dating Eric Clapton, he was with Jerry Hall, but that didn't stop them. The moment they met backstage at a Stones concert, the spark was instant. Clapton even begged Jagger, "Not this one, I think I'm in love." But within days, Jagger and Bruni were already deep into a secret romance. "She was everything he wanted," author Christopher Anderson wrote. "Gorgeous, young, rich, and already connected to the rock world." For Bruni, the attraction was equally intense. "He was the most exciting man I ever met," she later admitted. But the affair was anything but glamorous behind the scenes. Hall quickly caught wind of it. She gave Jagger an ultimatum. He married her in November 1990 and kept seeing Bruni anyway. The secrecy only made it worse. Even when Hall gave birth to their daughter Georgia in 1992, Jagger was with Bruni in Thailand. When Hall called Bruni directly, begging her to leave Jagger alone, Bruni denied it ever happened. "He's a fossil," she reportedly said. "His wife can keep him." The affair dragged on for years, hidden in plain sight, with Bruni insisting she barely knew Jagger while secretly meeting him around the world. But eventually, she'd had enough. "I was tired of being the other woman," she said. "It was passionate, but not meant to be." Heartbroken, Bruni confessed, "I thought I'd never get over it. I woke up every morning in despair." Today, she's known as the First Lady of France. But back then, she was one of the few women who walked away from Mick Jagger and didn't look back. Marsha Hunt. The lover Jagger can't forgive. Mick Jagger and Marsha Hunt's relationship burned fast, fierce, and complicated. She wasn't just another groupie in the Stones' orbit. She was an icon in her own right, model, singer, novelist, and the face of London's counterculture. In 1969, when the Stones asked her to pose as a honky-tonk woman, Hunt said no. "I didn't want to look like I'd been had by all the Rolling Stones." But Jagger was undeterred. He called, she answered. They fell. The affair exploded behind closed doors. Jagger, in Australia filming Ned Kelly, sent Hunt a series of passionate love letters, 10 in total, writing, "I will kiss you softly, and bite your mouth too." Their connection wasn't about fame. It wasn't based on a simple love affair, Hunt said. It was mutual admiration. By the end of the year, they had a dog, a plan, and a pregnancy. Jagger dreamed of a son named Midnight Dream. Hunt dreamed of stability. But reality hit hard. As her belly grew, Jagger's attention shrank. Hunt gave birth to their daughter, Karis, alone in November 1970. Jagger sent flowers and a car, but didn't show up. What followed was a Cold War, lawsuits, trust funds, paternity papers, and bitterness. Hunt took him to court, won support, and raised Karis mostly without him. Years passed. Jagger eventually stepped up, paying for Karis's school, attending her Yale graduation, even walking her down the aisle. They found peace. Still, Hunt's scars lingered. In 2012, she auctioned off those old love letters. Jagger was furious, but Hunt was unapologetic. "I'm broke," she admitted. "Let them be part of history." She had reason to be proud. Hunt was never just Mick's ex. She was the first black model on British Vogue, the muse behind Brown Sugar, a survivor of breast cancer, and the author of multiple acclaimed books. Their relationship may have ended in heartbreak, but Hunt turned pain into poetry and raised a daughter who became a producer and activist in her own right. He was educated, he was radical, Hunt said. He wasn't the man people think they know now. Loren Scott. The most stable relationships. When Mick Jagger met Loren Scott on a photo shoot in 2001, no one expected the Rolling Stones frontman, known for his wild heart and wilder past, to settle into one of the most stable relationships of his life. Loren, a statuesque former model turned celebrated fashion designer, brought elegance, order, and quiet power into his chaos. By the time she joined him at premieres and red carpets in the early 2000s, it was clear. This wasn't just another fling. This was serious. They laughed at the same things, ate the same food, shared a love of aesthetics and interiors. Of all his partners, she's the one most like Mick, said interior designer Nikki Haslam. They lived together in multi-million-dollar homes in London and Paris, with Loren curating every detail, right down to the shades of gray on the walls. She even designed Jagger's stage outfits, famously tearing up 24 jeans before settling on the perfect pair. To Jagger, her fashion sense was legendary. To Loren, his approval meant everything. "Mick always comments on what I wear," she once said. "There's no more fashionable man alive." But in March 2014, the story took a tragic turn. Loren was found dead by suicide in her New York apartment. Jagger, on tour in Australia, was devastated. "I'm still struggling to understand how my lover and best friend could end her life in this tragic way," he wrote. They'd been together for 13 years. She had left him everything in her will, her $9 million estate, her possessions, her legacy. Chrissy Shrimpton, the first muse. Before Jerry, before the supermodels and scandals, there was Chrissy Shrimpton, Mick Jagger's first serious love. When they met in 1963, Jagger was just 19, still a student at the London School of Economics. Chrissy, then 17, was working as a secretary and just beginning to dip her toes into the glamorous world her older sister Jean Shrimpton had already conquered. Mick was scrappy and unknown. The Rolling Stones hadn't hit it big yet, but everything was about to change. Fast. They started dating just as the Stones exploded onto the British music scene. At first, it was young, innocent love. Chrissy later said, "I thought I'd be with him forever." She didn't want the fame, the fans, or the rock and roll circus. All she dreamed of was a quiet life and a family. But Mick was heading in the opposite direction, chasing stardom, club lights, and the chaos that came with it. By 1965, despite the roller coaster, the two were engaged. But things weren't rosy. Mick was constantly on the road. Chrissy was overwhelmed by the media attention and worn out by his controlling behavior. Worse, she knew and tried to ignore the affairs. He sent her letters, called obsessively, even arranged drivers to make sure she was home. But love doesn't survive on supervision. In 1966, everything cracked. Jagger had begun secretly seeing singer Maryanne Faithful. Chrissy was left in the dark, but she felt the shift. He grew distant, cold. And then, one day, he just didn't show up for a planned vacation. Flights were canceled, phone calls unanswered. The heartbreak was brutal. Alone, isolated, and estranged from her family for choosing to live with Jagger, Chrissy attempted suicide. She later said, "I really wanted to die. I thought my life was over." She survived, barely, but their relationship didn't. The breakup inspired several songs on the Aftermath album, including Out of Time, which Chrissy resented for its cruel tone. Mick moved on. So did she, eventually, but that first love, raw and wild, never left her completely. Decades later, she told the Daily Mail, "You can't help going off, people. We were both very, very young, but the scars and the music remained." And there you have it, a wild, complicated, and unforgettable journey through the love life of Mick Jagger. From fleeting flings to long-term partners, secret affairs to tragic endings, his relationships have mirrored the highs and lows of rock and roll itself. But behind the headlines, the breakups, and the scandals, one thing is clear. Jagger's heart has always been as restless as his stage moves. Now we want to hear from you. Which of Mick Jagger's relationships do you think had the biggest impact on him? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and spread the rock and roll drama.